Hey everyone, this is Sharon Koifman, the Progressive Zionist, and we are almost there in explaining how to change the minds of millions of people. But first, I need to tackle the least fun topic, which is what we're doing wrong that prevents us from achieving PR dominance. In the previous video discussing whether it is actually possible to change the minds of a million people, I made the case that not only it is possible to create epic international change in people's perspectives, but it is also possible to do it quickly. And now is the right time in history to achieve this tipping point. And by the way, we are also great at spreading those messages. So then the question comes, if it is possible, if it is the right time, and if our community was known for achieving this in the past, what's actually stopping us from reaching this tipping point? And that's what I want to tackle today. Because unfortunately, at this moment, I very much believe we're heading in the wrong direction. And like many of my videos, I do come with a bit of disclaimer. This video includes some criticism of my own community, and I don't take any pleasure in this. Pointing out that we are actually going in the wrong direction might create some resentments, and this is not my intention. I love my community. I'm proud to be part of it. And I appreciate the federations, the Bnei Brithers, the ADLs, and the AGCs of the world who work day and night to fight this incredibly tough battle while keeping our community safe and vibrant. I just hope to provide constructive feedback to help them become even better. I truly hope that one day these organizations will not be so busy fighting for me, but instead fighting alongside me and the rest of the community. Because just like in Israel, the fight cannot be won by just a few leaders, but must involve the entire community. So for all of you out there, my criticism is an attempt at providing loving, constructive feedback on how we could actually win the PR war, starting with the discussion of what's not working. And of course, if you think my videos are loving and constructive and really gives you an idea how we can change the way the world thinks, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me get that message out there. So let's get started. In the video discussing the science of why we're losing the PR war, I show how the anti-Israel advocates are training a massive number of people with small, familiar, emotionally driven messages that can be repeated often to achieve what we call the mere exposure effect. This is what we refer to as the bottom-up social movement, where the leader's job isn't necessarily to advocate, but to support and create many other advocates. Some people simply call it grassroots advocacy because it focuses on many one-on-one conversations. I know it looks like the haters are outdoing us on TV and TikTok, but it is actually the massive number of people willing to have this face-to-face conversations that makes the biggest impact against us. The reason why a bottom-up social movement is so crucial is that it encourages advocates to talk to strangers all day long.
By the looks of your shoes, definitely knows how everything's going on.
When they are in universities, clubs, gyms, and parties, they meet and make friends from all walks of life, going beyond the echo chamber. So activism doesn't even have to be proactive. It can actually be casual while having conversations in any venue. And again, this gives you the opportunity to talk to a lot of strangers, or at least people who aren't part of your bubble. It's actually why social media has not been so effective for us. Unfortunately, the algorithm pushes our message into the echo chamber, reaching people who already support our ideas. Yes, there are ways for some people to break the mold. I've met some pretty awesome social media experts and activists whose focus is getting celebrities and influencers outside the usual crowd to say something supportive about Israel. My favorite example of a solid social media initiative is what Noah Tishby has achieved. Now, I'm a fan of Noah Tishby in general, and I find our Israel book to be really great. However, I feel that most people who read her book or watch her videos are already supportive of Israel. That all changed when she partnered with Emmanuel Echo, a famous football player and black rights advocate, to write a book with her. Suddenly, she had access to millions of new followers who don't necessarily associate with her narrative. That was her most powerful initiative. And to be fair, she might not have reached that stage without first getting a strong following from the community that she's built. Yet, unfortunately, most social media efforts are a bust.
Because I don't believe in that social media.
simply because we struggle to reach strangers with our message. I'm not saying to avoid social media altogether, but it's not as powerful as we might think. Taking the grassroots path or bottom-up social movement is truly the way to go. As we learned from previous videos, to achieve that, you first must focus on quality messaging. And after that, it's all about quantity. You need to educate a lot of people to spread your narrative. In fact, messaging is a crucial part of achieving quantity. That's why it's so important to keep things easy, simple, and repeatable. You just can't overload people with data. We need to find strategies that teach tons of people the basics instead of creating a few experts that spew a lot. Which, by the way, even if we choose to incorporate social media tactics, quality messaging by huge numbers of advocates is still the key to make it a success. Unfortunately, in the Jewish and Zionist communities, it is very much a leadership-centric, or what we call top-down management. Our leaders are the voices of the community, and there is rarely any good infrastructure to manage a mass group of advocate volunteers. And if the leaders of these organizations are not talking on our behalf, it transfers to the top influencers like Douglas Murray, Yosef Haddad, and Rudy Roachman. Where it comes to this leader influencers, we love booking events with them and listening to their speeches. For many of us, this is what we consider to be pro-Israel activism. We attend events and even do some fundraising for those rare charismatic influencers. Every once in a while, we also join protests or vigils, all in the name of showing solidarity and making ourselves feel good. But we rarely spend time actually influencing and persuading people. As far as we're concerned, the Douglas Murrays and the Yosef Haddads of the world are the ones that should do it for us.
Go, fight, protect me!
Whether it's on social media or one of those Piers Morgan and Oxford type debates, which again, unfortunately, are not strategies that are as effective as we assume them to be. Because of this top-down management, our community rarely creates the proper environment to learn how to advocate, especially on a large scale. We have amazing resources, but we rarely use them. We have Jewish schools with around 300,000 students just in North America and about 800,000 registered Jewish students in universities, which any of them can access, Hillel, Chabad, or other great Jewish institutions. We have birthright trips and community centers. About 20% of the Jewish population in the US, which is around 1.5 million people, frequent synagogues at least once a month. And then another 180,000 young people that go to Jewish camps. We have all the right resources to spread our message. And again, I repeat, as a community, we're actually very good at spreading messages. As I explained in the previous video, Jews are natural storytellers, and for that matter, super spreaders. This is our main survival tool. Almost all of our 15 million Mishpacha members know the story of the Exodus and understand the Holocaust. We've also done a great job ensuring that the rest of the world knows it too. Spreading our message is not the challenge. Creating the message and focusing on it is. When it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, we simply aren't invested enough in creating an exceptional, easy message that can be explained in under a minute, which is all we have in this short attention world we live in. And if someone out there has managed to come up with this right, amazing message, we clearly haven't been exposed to it or been taught by it in our community. Our schools don't put emphasis on early Israel history. The kids might know who David Ben-Gurion is, sort of. They most certainly know who the Pharaoh, Hitler, Antiochus, and Amman are, yet they have no idea who Amin al-Husseini is. Seriously, I challenge the viewers on this video who actually went to Jewish schools. Do you know who is the person most responsible for initiating and instigating the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Ask your kids if they go to Jewish schools. If you don't know anything about Amin al-Husseini, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, your Jewish institution has failed you. Sorry. Because once you understand the damage this man and his family have caused, you might stop eating Amintashins and start eating Amintashins. If your school did not talk about the mistreatment of Jews in Palestine in the 1920s, the massacres, the expulsions from more than 15 towns, the draconian anti-immigration policies the massacre of Hebron, the Farhud, and more than 900 Jewish refugees ethnically cleansed from Arab countries, then we've got a serious curriculum problem. If your students did not learn what it meant to be a dhimmi and pay taxes for your existence, all this way before the famous 1948 Independence War, if your Jewish school did not talk about these topics, just like they talk about the Holocaust, why would your kids be motivated to defend Israel? When Seth Rogen, in an interview a few years ago, claimed, and I quote, "I was fed a huge amount of lies about Israel. You know, they never tell you that, oh, by the way, there were people there." I was really annoyed with that. Not just because he was being a complete douche, but because there was a bit of truth to his lie. He probably didn't learn anything about the topic, beside the fact that as Jews, we like Israel. And while I'm venting a bit, which I kind of promised that I wouldn't do, so I'm sorry, let's discuss birthright trips. For the few who don't know what it is a free trip for Jewish kids to get to know and fall in love with Israel. So every time I mention birthright, I'm confronted by Jews who insist that this is a propaganda trip. Jews, not Palestinians, even Zionists. Like if tomorrow they had a free trip to Italy, catered of course to Italian kids, you think they would start telling the kids all the wrong things that are happening in Italy. Because you know, that's why organizations offer free trips, to make you dislike a place, right? But honestly, I wish there would be more propaganda. While the haters always complain that there are no discussions about the Palestinians on those trips, I didn't feel there were many political discussions at all. When I took the trip as a young adult, there was no mention of how to defend Israel or explain our narrative. Actually, when I applied to be a madrich, which means guide in Hebrew, they refused me because I was too political. So before we start studying the Palestinian challenges, maybe we can start with the Jewish ones first. And to continue the venting, just a little bit more, if you don't mind. While I personally haven't had the chance to chat with top Hillel leaders, some of my friends have. And I found out that they aren't too interested in getting involved in politics because they want to cater to every Jew. This is my biggest complaint here. The solution to anti-Semitism is to get focused and deliver a clear message to as many people as possible. Focus is the key word here. And that means, my friends at Hillel and other organizations, if you're alarmed by the level of anti-Semitism going on, we can't cater to every Jew, especially the ones who want to bash us over the head. We have amazing resources at our disposal to teach all our kids how to become better advocates, but we aren't using them, partially because we're afraid of alienating some members of our community. Now, I have seen some programs in the past that pick a few students who look like future leaders, bring them on an expensive 2-week trip to Israel, and try to teach them to be expert advocates. It does sound great at first, but there are a few things that don't fit. First, making an expensive, inaccessible trip that forces kids to take 2 weeks off won't always attract the right crowd. It's nice to see that some parents are supportive, but if your parents can't afford a trip or don't feel like this is a good reason to miss 2 weeks of school, it doesn't mean that you're not a great future advocate. Second, kids and people in general aren't great at absorbing and retaining information in such intensive programs. It works much better through short, repetitive courses. Now, of course, the second they return to school or work, they need to catch up, and the information they've retained will have to compete in their brain with their daily studies or jobs. And the most important point is that this program focuses on just a few and doesn't create a curriculum that can easily teach the many, which is the key to PR dominance. Once you start teaching our narrative to everyone, you might be surprised to discover who your future top advocate will be. It could be that kid who fell asleep in the back row and didn't seem like a leader at first, or like I said, did not have the resources to go on that trip. But once you teach him, he finally ends up finding his strength. Unfortunately, any initiative I've seen so far seems to be the opposite of what is needed to create a massive group of advocates. It doesn't help that we continuously overload our advocates and allies with information instead of short, easy to recollect ideas. By the way, the overload of information is a major recurring challenge. In a previous video discussing the science behind how we're losing the PR war, I talked about how the anti-Israel marketing machine aims for what we call cognitive overload by overcomplicating the Israeli narrative with too much information. But honestly, I have no idea why they even bother, considering that we already do it for them. Every time I attend one of those Douglas Murray or Yosef Haddad lectures or listen to them on social media, I learn amazing new things while forgetting the information from the previous content. It's really that effective. Like I said, we love to attend events, cheer for our leaders, feel empowered, and then go home. But we rarely retain the information or replicate what we learned. That means none of this actually helps us to change the mind of even one extra person who doesn't already subscribe to our narrative. And we certainly don't give our advocates opportunities to practice. In the few protests that we go to, which kind of give us that sense of activism, there's always a recurring message between the songs and the overloading speeches that keeps on coming back. Do not engage.
Oi! No fighting. No fucking fighting. No fighting. No fucking fighting! Good.
Seriously, for all my active Zionists who go to these protest vigils and outdoor events, I have one question. How many times have you been told not to engage with those annoying counter-protesters? You know, the ones who don't seem to have an actual job besides being pests at Jewish events. I bet everyone has heard that message at least a few times. Somewhere in our minds, we think that we should just sing Kumbaya and ignore our surroundings, and the world will see us as the nice guys. But I have to break it to you, in case you haven't come to that conclusion yourself. The world doesn't give a shit. The media that dislikes Jews will keep on trashing us, while the media that supports us will point out the annoying disruptors. If anything, when we engage, we might actually attract more media that will point out the instigators. At the end of the day, the other side continuously disrupts and behaves like complete obnoxious assholes. Yet they somehow end up looking pretty good on many channels. This is actually the only time I've seen people trying so hard to be annoying, and as far as the media is concerned, they're all right.
Do you guys think Hamas is a terrorist organization?
They are a political organization. Certain countries such as Canada, the UK, the United States recognize them as terrorist organizations, but I think that one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
Here's what a lack of engagement does to us. It keeps us afraid and sheltered, leaving us uncomfortable protesting for our rights unless security surrounds us. Engaging with others gives us the opportunity to step outside our comfort zone, to practice having debates and conversations with strangers who don't like us. Even if we completely lose, we get a chance to practice. And yes, it is possible that some of our young advocates might end up in a physical altercation. I don't encourage it. I want our side to have the skills to engage in civil discourse. But, and I'm aware that this next sentence might not please many parents and listeners, I really had to think a long time before saying this because I don't want to turn off many of my listeners who care about their safety or they just want to be pacifists. But I do feel that it must be said for the sake of empowerment and also long-term safety. So here we go. If there's ever a time to get into an altercation, it's when you are with the majority, surrounded by your brothers and sisters, plus a couple of security guards and a police for good measures. Sure, you might end up with a bruise or two, but hey, it could actually be one of the most empowering things you have ever done. You get a chance to stand up for yourself and your community. And this could actually change you forever. I'm not suggesting that we go full JDL craziness here. I'm not interested in fighting. I want our advocates to be civil and empathetic, or as I like to call it, the Rudy Roachman or the Joseph Cohen style. And by the way, if you haven't seen those Rudy or Joseph videos, they are a blast. Watching these guys debate for our side with cool, empathetic demeanor, like witnessing a Jedi Master at work, sometimes against the most intimidating opposition. And while they never actually get hurt, scary people do get into their faces and sometimes they do get pushed around. Yet through continuous exposure, they develop almost this courage muscle that not only makes them amazing advocates, but also helps them be stronger leaders who are able to maneuver through uncomfortable situations. So just to be clear, I'm not encouraging any altercations. In fact, the chances of any kind of altercation, especially the ones that will get someone hurt, are probably in the 0.0000001%, especially with security and police presence. But I'm genuinely concerned that our community is preventing actual verbal engagement simply because we're afraid there will be some physical altercation that might get someone hurt or make us look bad. And honestly, that sucks. And I don't know about you, but because this non-engagement policy, this year, I was stuck in a building where some of my colleagues could not get out for 5 hours. And another occasion where I, with the rest of the community, had to walk out from the back of a building like black musicians in the 50s. Yet the sad part is that our leaders kind of got used to the idea and very few made a big deal about it because we didn't want to fight. The reality is that the need for diaspora Jews to keep themselves safe at almost any cost is kind of what makes us unsafe right now. I don't know how to say this nicely, but if the other side learns not to fuck with us, they might actually back the fuck down a bit. Right now, they feel empowered by the fact that they can intimidate us. Like some of them literally think they're in one of those Cobra Kai TV shows doing whatever the fuck they want. And it's time for us to be the Karate Kids.
Pointless nostalgia.
Backing down from messages that need to be delivered has been a core challenge in our community. In our last video, Is It Possible to Change the Minds of a Million People?, I discussed how surprisingly, until the late 70s, the Holocaust was not common knowledge. I know it's shocking, even the term Holocaust itself was not commonly used. And until the 60s, there wasn't even one memorial or museum in North America. Part of this is because survivors wanted to move on with their lives, and many felt strangely ashamed. However, what I didn't mention in the last video is that Jewish leaders believed that putting up a memorial would encourage a mentality of victimhood and increase anti-Semitism. In 1948, when Adolf Lerner, a Polish Holocaust survivor, secured funding and permission from the mayor to build a memorial in New York, our community leaders prevented it from happening. This decision, whether justified or not, played a role in sending us back 30 years in Holocaust education that today we take for granted. Now, I can appreciate that hindsight is 2020. And for all I know, it might have been the right decision at the time. Maybe not feeling like victims empowered us for the incredible recovery we went through in the last century. But I can state with clear conviction that right now, when it comes to Israel and anti-Semitism, things are clearly not working for us. And based on my research, this has everything to do with lack of focus, lack of strategy, and weak apologetic messaging. In the end, I'm not trying to bust chops of all these wonderful Jewish institutions. They are doing a lot to advocate for Jews in Israel. I do find that their tactics of lobbying and creating missions for politicians and leaders to be quite strong, because if you can't convince people with facts, taking them on a fun trip to Israel might just do the trick. I'm also not trying to stop us from empowering our leaders, and I'm certainly not dismissing the power of protest. It is important to show our faces and let the government know that we count. But I also want to point out that we are missing an opportunity that can make a far bigger impact, not only for the sake of making Israel safer, but also to reduce anti-Semitism and make an entire community feel far more empowered, just like they do in Israel. It's somewhat bittersweet for me to see that Israelis are branded as strong, someone like Doron from Fada, who you just don't mess with. Meanwhile, when I think of North American Jews, I kind of envision Jerry Seinfeld. And I'm talking about Jerry from the 90s with that horrible jeans and the bad hair. We are losing more and more family members to the other side every day. And I'm not referring to the war, but to young Jews who are becoming more apologetic and critical of Israel. Sometimes it feels like many young Jews are more passionate about whether their grandma's chicken soup is better than their friends than what is really happening to our community. Yet Jewish institutions, at least for now, are still strong and could be incredible resources for creating a huge team of advocates. I just hope they understand the urgency to focus on activism and build real grassroots advocacy. So if my message wasn't clear, let's focus our energy on getting as many advocates as possible and building a movement with tens, if not hundreds of thousands of advocates. Quantity is the name of the game, and grassroots, bottom-up social activism is how we get there. Not social media, Not those big media debates that are always balanced out with exceptional propagandists who are empowered with social proofing tactics, but one-on-one conversations with strangers. This also means that we can't depend on our leaders to fight our battles. We need them to help us recruit and train as many people as possible. Even more important, we need our leaders to become really good at managing volunteers, which unfortunately is not our strength at this stage. This is kind of the little last comment, but a very important one. Bottom-up social movement is about empowering the community to get involved. I will leave you with one last story. During my university years, I fell in love with activism. It actually empowered me, made me more confident, and turned me into a better businessman and a leader. Because I felt in control of my narrative, it surprisingly didn't make me angry. Instead, it made me empathetic. My ability to civilly discuss and even make friends with my Palestinian opponents truly shaped my character for many years after. Unfortunately, no one came to teach me how to be an advocate. I had to learn that on my own while studying engineering, which was not easy and at times a bit sad and lonely. But I generally see those years as an exceptional experience with very little frustration to look back on. What I do find frustrating and truly heartbreaking at times is getting the stories of my friends years later. I remember a few times when I bumped into an old Jewish friend from university and Jewish activism came up as the topic. I often heard that they wished they could join me in my activism adventures, but no one ever taught them what to say. And that, my friends, is truly the failure. People who were passionate about Zionism had the energy to advocate, but didn't join the fight because they didn't know how. We need to get focused. We have to stop being the solution for every Jew. We must get political, create an easy, repeatable message that any colleague can easily deliver, and ensure that this is being taught in every institution with a Jewish name on it. And of course, we must encourage our people to influence strangers, not just discuss things in our own echo chambers, which, by the way, hopefully will motivate the strangers to influence others and create the viral effect necessary to achieve the tipping point. Also, we don't need to use a lot of our resources. Maybe just an hour every few months. Something I will break down in the next video where I'll discuss how to change the minds of 1 million people. Yes, we have arrived. I'm Sharon Koifman, the Progressive Zionist. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video, because I hope to see you in the next one. It's going to be the big one. See you soon.